A man built the most incredible car garage on the internet. Millions watched as he transformed rusted metal into masterpieces. He had the dream job. He had the followers. He had everything. Then in 2024, something shattered it all. Ian Roussel's world collapsed in a way nobody saw coming. And the internet had no idea what really happened behind those garage doors. This is the story of how success became devastation. Ian Roussel started with nothing but a dream and a garage. In the early days, he wasn't famous. He wasn't rich. He was just a guy who loved cars and decided to film himself working on them. But something was different about Ian. While other mechanics posted boring how-to videos, Ian told stories. Every car that rolled into his garage had a history. Every restoration became a journey. The channel grew slowly at first. Hundreds of viewers, then thousands, then millions. People weren't just watching a guy fix cars, they were watching someone rescue them. Abandoned vehicles that should have been crushed became works of art. Rusted husks transformed into gleaming machines. And Ian made it look effortless. His calm voice, his steady hands, the way he explained every decision. It felt authentic. It felt real. By the early 2020s, Full Custom Garage had become one of the most beloved channels on YouTube. Millions subscribed. Sponsors came calling. Brand deals flooded in. Ian went from struggling to make content to being offered opportunities most creators could only dream about. He had built something massive. But here's what nobody realized at the time. Success at this level comes with a hidden cost. Behind the viral videos and the sponsorship money, the pressure was building. The expectations kept climbing. Fans demanded more content. The algorithm demanded consistency. Every video had to be bigger, better, more impressive than the last. Ian was working constantly. Filming, editing, managing a team, handling business. The dream was starting to feel like a cage. By 2023, Full Custom Garage wasn't just Ian anymore. It was an empire. Multiple employees. Multiple projects running simultaneously. The casual garage guy had become a CEO, and that's when the cracks started to show, cracks that would eventually break everything. Ian's success wasn't an accident. It was built on something genuine that resonated with millions of people. He tapped into something deep, the human desire to see broken things become whole again. Every car restoration was a metaphor. Decay into beauty, abandonment into purpose, rust into shine. People didn't just watch his videos, they felt them. What made Full Custom Garage different from every other car channel was the emotional storytelling. Ian didn't just show you the work. He showed you why it mattered. He researched the history of every vehicle. He found the original owners when he could. He created narratives that made viewers invested in the outcome. When a car was finally finished, it wasn't just a technical achievement, it was a resurrection. And viewers felt like they were part of it. The money followed naturally. With millions of monthly views, the sponsorships were inevitable. Tool companies, car part manufacturers, insurance companies, energy drink brands. Suddenly, Ian wasn't just creating content, he was a marketing machine. Every video was an opportunity. The channel was printing money. He could have anything he wanted. A bigger garage, better equipment, luxury cars to work on, fame, respect, influence. But success at this level changes people in ways they don't expect. The pressure intensifies, the stakes get higher. Every video has to perform. Every project has to be perfect. Mistakes aren't just mistakes anymore. They're failures that millions will see. And the business side? That's where things get messy. Managing employees, dealing with contracts, handling the legal and financial complexity of a multi-million-dollar operation. It's not just about passion anymore. It's about survival. Ian was living the dream. Except dreams have a way of turning into nightmares when you're not careful. And in 2024, the nightmare arrived. What happened next would shock the entire creator community and leave questions that still haven't been fully answered. The man who seemed to have it all was about to lose everything, and the internet would watch it happen in real time. The comment sections turned ugly. People who had loved his content felt betrayed. Not just disappointed, betrayed. Because the magic of full custom garage was built on the feeling that Ian was different, that he was authentic, that he genuinely cared. If that was a lie, then what were viewers actually supporting all those years? This wasn't just a scandal about workplace practices. It was an identity crisis for an entire community of fans who felt personally connected to someone they'd never actually met. The allegations came from multiple directions, and each one carried weight. Former employees began sharing detailed accounts of what it was like to work at Full Custom Garage. One person described working 60-hour weeks without overtime compensation. Another talked about being promised equity in the business that never materialized. A third described a work environment where mistakes were met with public humiliation, sometimes on camera, in front of millions of viewers. What made these accounts particularly damaging was the specificity. These weren't vague complaints. They included dates, names, specific incidents. One former employee claimed they had been asked to work on personal projects for Ian's own vehicles while still being paid as a Full Custom Garage employee. Another described a situation where they were fired abruptly after raising concerns about safety violations in the shop. The stories painted a picture of a workplace that had become increasingly exploitative as the business grew. But the employee issues were only part of it. Financial transparency became a major concern. Sponsors and brand partners started asking questions about how their money was being used. There were discrepancies in reported viewership numbers and actual ad revenue. Questions emerged about whether certain sponsorships were actually disclosed to viewers, a serious violation of FTC guidelines. If true, it meant Ian could have been misleading millions of people for years while profiting from it. The automotive community also began examining the actual quality of the restorations more critically. Some mechanics pointed out that certain vehicles had been restored, but not necessarily correctly. There were concerns about authenticity, whether some of the rescues were actually as abandoned or neglected as they appeared on camera. Had Ian been exaggerating the condition of vehicles for dramatic effect? Were some of these cars purchased specifically because they looked dramatic, not because they needed saving? Then came the personal allegations. People who claimed to have met Ian described a person completely different from his on-camera persona. Cold, arrogant, dismissive of fans. Stories circulated about him being rude to people who recognized him in public. One story involved him allegedly refusing to take a photo with a young fan who had been inspired by his channel. These might have been isolated incidents or exaggerations, but combined with everything else, they formed a narrative of a man whose success had fundamentally changed him, and not for the better. What made the 2024 crisis different from typical YouTube drama was that this wasn't just about public perception. This was about systemic issues that had developed inside the Full Custom Garage operation. And the deeper people dug, the more complicated the picture became. Labor law experts began examining the employment practices described by former workers. If the allegations were accurate, Full Custom Garage had been operating in violation of multiple labor regulations. Unpaid overtime, misclassification of employees, unsafe working conditions that weren't being reported to authorities. In some cases, these weren't just ethical violations, they were illegal. Some former employees consulted with lawyers about potential lawsuits. A few actually filed complaints with labor boards in their states. The financial side was equally troubling. An independent audit by a YouTube finance analyst revealed significant discrepancies in how revenue was being reported. Sponsorship deals that should have been disclosed weren't mentioned. Ad revenue numbers didn't align with channel performance metrics. It suggested that either Ian or his business manager, possibly both, had been deliberately obscuring the financial reality of the operation. Whether this was intentional fraud or gross negligence became the critical question. What emerged was a picture of a business that had grown too fast and been managed poorly. Ian had built something massive without understanding how to run it ethically. And this is what many people began to suspect, he understood exactly what he was doing and didn't care. The passion that had made Full Custom Garage special had been replaced by greed. The authentic garage guy had become just another influencer chasing money and status. The worst part? The content itself began to feel tainted. Fans started rewatching old videos and seeing them differently. What had seemed like genuine care for restoring vehicles now felt performative. Those emotional moments when a car was revealed, manufactured for views. The stories about the original owners, perhaps exaggerated or even fabricated. Everything that had made people love Full Custom Garage felt like it might have been a calculated production designed to extract money from an audience's emotions. Ian's silence during this period made everything worse. As the accusations piled up, he retreated from social media. No statements, no explanations, no accountability, just absence. And that silence spoke volumes. It suggested he either didn't care what people thought or was preparing for legal battles ahead. The collapse happened fast. Sponsors began pulling out. Major brands that had paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to be associated with Full Custom Garage wanted nothing to do with him anymore. Tool companies removed their products from his shop. Energy drink brands erased him from their ambassador programs. One by one, the revenue streams that had sustained the operation dried up. YouTube's algorithm, which had been so kind to Ian for years, turned against him. Videos started getting demonetized, not because of content violations, but because advertisers were avoiding the channel due to the controversy. Even older videos, ones that had nothing to do with the scandal, started losing ad revenue as brands implemented blanket policies against his channel. The money that had seemed endless was suddenly gone. Then came the employee exodus. People who had worked at Full Custom Garage began leaving or being laid off. Without sponsorship money flowing in, Ian couldn't afford to keep paying them. The team that had helped build the empire scattered. Some went to other channels. Others left content creation entirely. The garage that had once buzzed with activity became quieter, emptier. Projects that were in progress got abandoned. Vehicles that had been promised to be restored sat unfinished. The legal threats started arriving. Former employees were seriously pursuing lawsuits over unpaid wages and unsafe conditions. Labor boards in multiple states opened investigations. Ian hired expensive lawyers. Court filings became public record. Details that had been whispered about in online forums were now documented in legal documents for anyone to see. The costs of defending himself mounted. Legal fees that could have gone towards settling with employees went to attorneys instead. What happened next was perhaps the most devastating part, the personal consequences. Ian's mental health visibly deteriorated. In rare public appearances, he looked exhausted, defeated. The confidence that had defined his on-camera presence was gone. Some people felt sympathy. Others felt vindicated. The man who had seemed invincible was revealed to be fragile, just like everyone else. But unlike everyone else, his breakdown was happening in front of millions of people who had watched his rise and were now watching his fall. His relationship with the automotive community also shattered. Mechanics and restoration experts who had respected him now kept their distance. Fellow YouTubers who had collaborated with him distanced themselves. Industry events that would have welcomed him before now uninvited him. He wasn't just losing a business, he was losing his identity within the community that had defined him. As of late 2024, Ian Roussel has largely disappeared from public view. Full Custom Garage still exists as a channel, but new uploads are rare. The few videos that do get posted are different, less polished, less frequent, stripped of the production quality that once made them special. It feels like someone going through the motions rather than creating something they believe in. The comment sections are mostly empty now. Millions of subscribers, but hardly anyone watching. The lawsuits are still ongoing. Former employees are pursuing claims for back wages and damages. The labor board investigations continue. Legal proceedings move slowly, but they move. Ian's legal team is fighting hard, but the weight of multiple cases is crushing. Settlement negotiations have happened, but details remain confidential. What's clear is that this is going to cost him significantly, both financially and emotionally. Financially, the damage is severe. The sponsorship money is gone. Ad revenue has plummeted. He's likely burning through savings to pay for legal defense. The luxury lifestyle that success had afforded him is no longer sustainable. Reports suggest he's had to sell equipment, downsize the operation, and make difficult decisions about what to keep and what to let go. The empire that took years to build collapsed in months. Personally, Ian has become a cautionary tale. Mental health struggles have been reported by people close to him. The stress of public humiliation, legal battles, and financial ruin would break most people. He's gone from being celebrated as an inspiration to being discussed as a villain. Internet culture moves fast, and he's already being forgotten by new audiences. But for the millions who watched his rise, the betrayal lingers. There have been attempts at redemption. Some online have suggested he needs to take genuine accountability, not just legal settlements, but real apologies and attempts to make things right with the people he hurt. A few of his former employees have indicated they'd be open to reconciliation if he genuinely acknowledged what happened and worked to repair the damage. But as of now, those conversations haven't happened publicly. The full Custom Garage channel is still technically active, but it's become a digital ghost, a monument to what once was. Some videos still get recommended to new viewers who have no idea about the scandal. They watch an old restoration and feel inspired, not knowing the ugly truth behind the scenes. It's a strange existence, being famous and forgotten at the same time. Ian Roussel's story isn't just about one person's failure. It's a window into something much larger that's happening across the entire creator economy. Thousands of YouTubers, TikTokers, and social media influencers are building empires without any real understanding of how to run a business ethically, and the system is designed to reward that ignorance. When you're a content creator, especially one who becomes successful quickly, nobody teaches you how to manage employees. Nobody warns you about labor laws. Nobody explains the ethical implications of monetizing emotional connections with your audience. You're just a person making videos, and suddenly you're running a multi-million-dollar operation. The transition from creator to CEO happens overnight, and most people aren't equipped for it. The pressure to constantly produce content creates a toxic environment almost automatically. Audiences expect new videos regularly. The algorithm demands consistency. Sponsors want more engagement. So creators push themselves and their teams harder and harder. Corners get cut. Ethics get compromised. What starts as passion becomes exploitation because the system incentivizes it. It rewards growth over sustainability, views over values, money over morality. There's also a deeper psychological component that people rarely discuss. Success changes people, especially internet success. When millions of strangers validate you every single day, it's intoxicating. Your ego expands. You start believing your own mythology. You begin to think you're special, different, above normal rules, that you deserve special treatment because you've earned it. This isn't unique to Ian. It's a pattern seen across the creator space. The audience dynamics make it worse. Fans don't want to see their heroes as flawed humans. They want them to be perfect, inspirational, above reproach. So creators feel pressure to maintain that image at all costs. The gap between the real person and the public persona grows wider and wider. Eventually, that gap becomes unsustainable. The truth comes out, and when it does, the fall is catastrophic because the betrayal feels personal. What's particularly tragic about Ian's situation is that it was preventable. If he'd hired proper management early on, if he'd consulted with lawyers about employment practices, if he'd been honest about his limitations and brought in people who actually knew how to run a business, if he'd prioritized ethics over growth, any of those things could have changed everything. But the system doesn't reward prevention. It only punishes failure after the fact. The real question isn't what happened to Ian Roussel. The question is how many other creators are currently repeating his mistakes right now. How many are building empires on exploitation without even realizing it? How many audiences are watching content created by people who are slowly breaking under pressure? The full Custom Garage tragedy isn't an isolated incident. It's a preview of a much larger reckoning coming to the creator economy. And until the system changes, there will be more Ian Roussels, more public falls, more betrayed audiences, more broken dreamers who built something beautiful on a foundation of lies.